It is better to be ruled by Russia than the USA. Everybody got what the don't move? Everybody got it? Now remember, there are two rules to this game. You weren't here when I explained the rules. One, don't move until I say move, because we don't want anybody up front to influence anybody in the back. And then the second one is you can move lines at any point, but you can't move in between a line. You got to move to the full line. Okay, that's basically the only two rules. And you can stop playing anytime you want. Okay. It is better to be ruled by Russia than the USA. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay, so we have 1 strongly disagree, 3 disagrees, 1 neutral. Okay, so give me your reasons for why you strongly disagree.
I will also come up with historical reasons. I mean, the countries which were invited by the US had currently a democratic system, a strong economy, and in the Eastern Bloc, like also in Eastern Central Europe.
Speak loud so they can hear.
Yeah. So the historical experience is that where Russia stepped in, there was no economic development and no democratic political system, I think.
So economy and democracy are your two reasons.
Yeah, of course, and there are no gulag camps in Alaska, for example.
Okay. Why are you on the disagree line and not to one to your right or left?
Well, I agree also because of historical purposes, like what we've said before, like in the countries invaded by the USA, where mostly democracy, and USA has, I think, better economy. But we should also consider that Russia is also a huge power in the eastern part of the world. So we don't really know how would the situation look like if Russia invaded us today. It probably wouldn't be so good. So that's why I'm standing on.
All right. What do you think?
It's okay. I also have historical reasons,
Okay.
I think. And also they have different powers, definitely. But I do see maybe America better because like people's well-being could be better. I don't think they would like to destroy us, and maybe Russia would like suck our power, and I don't know.
When you say destroy us,
the resources.
You don't think America would want to destroy you?
Yes.
They wouldn't just come in and steal your resources.
Yes.
But you think the Russians might, or
that would be a strong sentence.
the Russians
to say.
could.
I mean,
You trust the Americans not? I'm trying to figure out.
Yes,
here.
yes,
Yeah,
kind of,
okay.
and yeah, historical reasons, like we were in very bad situation under. the
Okay,
Russians.
now I think you're a native English speaker.
Yes, and
the only one here,
I'm
okay.
from the USA.
Okay.
The way that I interpret the statement, like, is it better for me as an individual to be under Russia or the
Yeah.
USA? So maybe that's how I approach it. I would say maybe 2 main things about Russia that would negatively impact me.
Okay.
Is one, it seems like kind of a reckless country that recklessly pursues its geopolitical goals. So I wouldn't want to be drafted into an aggressive war, into just an action against a sovereign nation. The second thing would be, I think there are liberties in the U.S. that might not be enjoyed by Russians to the same extent. Political freedoms, freedom of speech, things like that.
So those are pretty strong reasons. So how come you're not on this line?
Well, I think as someone who has more conservative views, I think the USA maybe aggressively pushes some things that I disagree with in a way that Russia doesn't. For example, on like gender ideology or abortion, things like that.
Okay. So you're neutral. So you don't know enough about it? You don't have a particular strong opinion? You don't care? So how come you're neutral and not somewhere else?
Well, I think I would define my stance as strongly and actively neutral. in a sense that firstly, I don't know enough about Russia and the US, as I've never lived there. And there are these things that people associate with Russia and the USA. For example, USA is the democratic freedom incorporating country, and Russia is this autocratic, oppressive system, which I don't know how true that is, as I believe that both sides have a narrative, and that propaganda isn't something that is solely pushed by the Russians, I think. And so I would say, to summarize my thoughts, I don't know enough about the two countries. I don't know the reality behind Russia. And I also disagree with many things that Russia does, but also the consumerist ideology that is prevalent in the USA is something that I think is very...
Okay. Did anything anybody say convince you to move to the slightly disagree?
I think I'm good here.
You're good? Is there anything you could tell him that would convince him to go to slightly disagree?
Actually, I was not able to hear him.
Oh, well, that sucks.
But yeah, it is. But I have an example. I mean,
so he's going to say
one of-
something. 1 second, and he's going to say something to see if what you say, if what he says, will convince you to move to the slightly disagree. So if you make sure you can hear him.
So a few of my ancestors were deported to Russia in the First World War and in the Second World War too. So my family seen two eras in Russia: the Soviet era and the Tsaric era. I mean, that's the definition of that. And neither was good. And every single family in Hungary has this fact that someone was deported, and people don't do research about it. It's not a big deal if your whatever ancestors were deported to Russia, and it's horrible. That it's so normal for us that more than 500,000 people were deported to Russia, and it's a normal thing in Eastern Europe. So at this point, I don't understand. So I can understand you why you stay neutral. Yeah, this woke and this aggressive pushing of gender ideology and such things, these are annoying, but they don't take your life or your freedom.
So you're saying that because of the previous oppressive systems that were prevalent in Russia, many people were deported, and I agree that that's something that's a horrible thing, and many have experienced that, especially here in Hungary. But I also believe that it's unfair to use that as an argument for the current Russian system, as it's completely different.
Okay.
It's as if you would say that I don't. Sorry, can I say one more thing? It's as if you would say that I don't like Germany now because of what the Nazis did in World War II. I don't agree with Merkel because the Nazis, whatever.
I'm coming to you a second.
In the last, don't know. So in 2005, I guess, a few American soldiers executed Iraqi soldiers. And that was a big deal in America. So there were lawsuits about that. That was a huge thing. Now, we found the Ukrainian army found dozens, but of course hundreds of graves of executed Ukrainian soldiers. Like they were brutally murdered,
civilians.
And civilians. They were brutally murdered by Russia. And I think it's one thing that the regime changes, but the people is not, and there are no democracy. I don't know. I think that the Russian people generally would like to be in a democracy, in a free system, and they can accept that currently Putin rules them. And then before then, Gorbachev, Stalin, etc. ruled them, and then I think that's just not an option at this point.
If I could suggest an argument for you to move a little bit closer over here from the neutral, I would say, looking at it from an economic perspective, the US is much more successful than Russia. And the standard of living of average people in the United States is significantly higher. So if we're looking at the statement here, is it better to be ruled by Russia than the USA? I think that's a very strong case for an individual to say, I would rather be under the USA than Russia.
I have a question for everybody. Can you please think in your head right now of somebody you love? Don't say it out loud. Just think of someone you love. Someone you say, either you say I love you to, or you feel deep love for them in your heart. You got someone? Would you rather they live in the USA or Russia?
That's a hard one.
The USA.
The USA.
USA.
Of course, USA.
I would say the USA as well. But just because of this current political crisis that we're in.
Which crisis is
Well,
that?
the war. I think it's much more stable for someone to live in the US now than in Russia.
Okay, anybody have anything else they want to add?
I think if there's no war between Ukraine and Russia, you can't make your fortune there. So so even in peacetime, Russia is not an option, as you see, I think. So like the GDP per capita is like 6 times higher in the US, and just no question that it's a pretty bad country to live in.
I have one more question, because I'm really surprised by this conversation. Let me ask you a question. Let's say the GDP per capita were the same, absolutely identical, and there was no war in Ukraine. Okay, put that in your head. GDP is the same, no war in Ukraine. Think of someone you love.
But then what matters?
Well, that's my question. Where the GDP is the same, no war in Ukraine. Think of someone you love. You have to assign them. You have to put them in one place. Do you put them in Russia or do you put them in United States?
Russia.
Should I just say one country or can I elaborate?
No, you just get Russia or the US.
USA.
Okay, I can answer the question if I can elaborate.
Okay.
USA.
As we don't, or still we don't change the political system, than the USA. But after that, we could talk about Russia.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. You wanted to sit. You want to give you the last word here.
Oh, okay. Well, despite the fact that I'm here, I certainly sympathize with what you were saying about the USA and the consumerist society. I think that the US is very decadent in a lot of ways. So it's an interesting question that you pose. If the GDP was the same, if there was no war in Russia, but I feel like if the GDP was the same, Russia might just become as decadent as the US. So would I say that my loved one would rather
She's
live?
agreeing. You're agreeing with him.
Yeah, because it would be totally different if you give these terms that the GDP is the same and so, like.
Would free speech be the same? Would freedom of the press be the same? Would free be
Maybe.
the same? Maybe.
I cannot imagine this situation. So I think a lot of things would change if these two would be the same. So
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Yeah. So if I had to choose where a loved one would live, if I could choose between the USA today and the USA a while ago, maybe
Yeah.
a few decades back, certainly I'd say a few decades back.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody have any final words? As an American, I was almost shocked because what I would have thought you would have said for sure was that your fundamental freedoms were far more important than your economic prosperity.
I try to say that, but don't know.
Like freedom of criticizing the government, freedom of press,
I
freedom
don't
of
feel
assembly.
that I don't have. I mean, I didn't experience this situation in Russia. Like,
Yeah.
how can you not express your?
Yeah.
Like, I cannot imagine that. So
All of Putin's, anyone who criticizes Putin, they get thrown out a fucking window.
Yeah.
Or Pussy Riot, the band, they got put in
Rate of,
prison.
of Russian oligarchs are pretty high in this time. So like.
I think there might be some in the US who think that that's what happens here in Hungary.
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, I was actually,
But
yeah,
then
you're
again-
right, but
then
I was
again,
actually doing off,
if
yeah.
you say in public that you don't agree with your kids being gender transitioned if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to, you lose your job, I think that's a very strong argument against the USA.
That's what he said about 10 years ago.
I'm very conflicted about that because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're not. So I'm neutral when we're doing this, but when we're not doing it, then I give my opinion.